Oh yeah.
God say,
You got
to give more power to the people.
Local Matters family, we are blessed today with the treat in the form of Dr. Lester McCorn. He is the brand new president of Paine College, which is our hometown institution here in Augusta, Georgia. How are you doing today, Dr. McCorn?
I'm great, Miss Jackson. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you so much for accepting my invitation here on Local Matters. Our role is civic engagement. We want people to get involved in the community. We want them to become more confident voters. But in order to do that, you got to understand the issues and what's happening in the community. And this is a very significant happening here in the Augusta area. So thanks for accepting our invitation. So everybody wants to know, got this new president Payne. Who is this guy? So tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, yes, you're right. I'm getting a lot of those questions, but the reception I've gotten in Augusta is amazing. And I'm a Methodist preacher. I've been preaching since I was 20 years old. Actually started preaching when I was 16 in high school, but got my first church when I was 20. And so I said that to say, as an itinerant preacher, I've lived in a lot of places, and the reception I've gotten in Augusta is exceptional. Um, I I came to this job from Clinton College in Rock Hill, South Carolina, but I'm originally from Worcester, Massachusetts. Born and raised. My grandmama was from Camden, South Carolina, however, so I have South Carolina roots. So it was a bit of a homecoming for me to go to Clinton College. I grew up in the AME Zion Church. In fact, I can honestly say the church saved my life. I grew up in a very poor background from the projects of Worcester, Mass. My mother, single parent, raising my sister and I struggled, especially when I got to my high school years. We were actually evicted from several places. So I was homeless for most of my high school years. And there were three constants in my life: church, school, and sports. And those three things kept me out of a lot of trouble. Not that I didn't have my share of trouble, but they kept me grounded. They created a safety net for me, if you will. I actually lived with my pastor for a little while. The last time we got evicted, he came and picked me up. I had a quarter in my pocket and went to the payphone. Your young listeners have no idea what a payphone is, but I called my pastor and he asked one question: "Where are you?" And I've realized now that that was an existential question as well as a geographic question. And he came and got me and moved me into the parsonage of the Belmont Street AME Zion Church in Worcester, Massachusetts. And that really saved my life. And turned things around for me. In high school, I ended up becoming president of my senior class at a predominantly white high school. I only applied to one college, and that was Morehouse College in Atlanta. I got something in the mail that said, "Be somebody, be a Morehouse man." And it had pictures of all these distinguished alumni. And I said, "Oh my God, I want that. I want that." And thankfully, I got into Morehouse. It was the only school I applied to, and it changed the entire trajectory of my life. In fact, there's a recent documentary. Your listeners can go check it out. It's a documentary on my life called "From No House to Morehouse," that chronicles my journey from homelessness to Morehouse College. And so that's a little bit of my background. As in college, I was assigned to my first church while a student at Morehouse. I was actually a congressional intern to John Lewis while a student. In fact, I worked on his campaign, his first campaign for Congress, when he got elected and defeated Julian Bond in 1986. And that was the same year I was also assigned to a church. So in addition to pastoring my little church in Somerville, Georgia, which is going up towards Chattanooga, I had a 2-point circuit in Menlo and Somerville. And then I worked I was really mainly a volunteer, but I was a congressional intern for John Lewis. And that really put me on the path to the two passions of my life, which were ministry and social justice. which eventually led me to education. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. But there's a little background. I'm married. My wife and I have been married 33 years, going on 34, and we have 4 wonderful children and 5 grandchildren.
That is awesome. That is all awesome. As you describe your path to Morehouse, it is similar to my path to Delta Sigma Theta. Everybody's probably looking at me going, why is she wearing the red, white, and black? And what's going on with the necklace and all of that? We record these episodes in advance, and this is a landmark day in the history of Delta Sigma Theta because it is our 112th Founders Day. But that is exactly why I became a Delta. I was like, Barbara Jordan, Patricia Roberts Harris, Shirley Chisholm, where do I sign up? This is
Yes.
something that I want to do.
Yes.
You move from Massachusetts to Georgia. How was that transition for you?
Oh my God. It was revelatory. I've been in Massachusetts all my life. I hadn't been really, except in 1982, I guess I was about 16 years old. I went to the World's Fair. Our church, the youth group of the AME Zion Church on the Boston district, went to the World's Fair in Knoxville, Tennessee in 1982. That's the first time I had traveled south. And we went from there over to Livingstone College, another AME Zion school in Salisbury, for our youth Christian education convention. So those were the first 2 experiences I had south as a young person. So coming to Morehouse, sight unseen, I had never seen the campus. I had never been to Atlanta. And so it was just amazing. And you can imagine coming from a place like Worcester, which had a population less than 10% African American, maybe less than 5%, to go to Atlanta, where African Americans were running things. The mayor was Black, city councilors were Black, business people were Black, celebrities, all of that in Atlanta. It was mind-blowing to see yourself represented that way. Was so inspiring to me.
It's an awesome transition. And notice you are AMEZ.
Yes.
So does that mean you spent some time in North Carolina?
Of course. That's the hotbed of Zion Methodism. Yeah, very strong. And of course, South Carolina has a lot of AME Zion churches as well. And of course, Clinton College, which I came from, is an AME Zion school. So Livingstone and Clinton are our chief undergraduate institutions of the denomination. And you got a lot of AME Zion folk between North Carolina and South Carolina.
Are you still pastoring?
I am not. When I took the presidency, I left the pastorate after 31 years.
All right, very good. Well, welcome to our community. As I'm sure you figured out already, there are churches on every corner in Augusta, Georgia.
Yes, ma'am.
So we certainly wish you the best in finding one that is a good fit for you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I visited a couple. My good friend is the Reverend Dr. Charles Goodman at Tabernacle. And prior to him, you probably know Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III. He's one of my very best friends in the whole wide world. We went to school together at Morehouse, and I used to come and preach at Tabernacle when he was there. Another interesting tidbit that I think your listeners may be interested in, my tie to Augusta goes back 38 years. When I mentioned that I started pastoring at 20 years old, it was at an annual conference of the Georgia Conference that met at Mount Zion, AME Zion Church in Augusta, Georgia. I was ordained by Bishop Arthur Marshall at the altar of Mount Zion Church and given my first appointment. So you talk about a full circle moment. This is full circle for me, and Augusta really is home.
And life tends to do that for you and to you. So welcome back to Augusta for another landmark achievement in your life, becoming president of our local HBCU. And before we get into some of your vision about Paine, I do want to ask, did you always have a dream to become president of a college?
I did from the time I was a student at Morehouse. Of course, I was on the ministry trajectory, and Martin Luther King was my hero. So that he was probably the single greatest reason for me to go to Morehouse, was following Dr. King's legacy. But when I got there, I was introduced to the legacy of Benjamin Elijah Mays. who was Dr. King's mentor. He was the president of Morehouse for 27 years. And even though he had just died right before I came to Morehouse, his shadow was looming large over that campus. There is not the modern Morehouse without Benjamin Elijah Mays. He shaped the understanding of what it meant to be a Morehouse man. And so the more I learned of him, the more enamored I was of what he represented. Everybody wanted to be Dr. King, but I said, I want to be the man that mentored Dr. King. And that was Benny Mays. My oldest son is actually named after him. His name is W.E.B. McCorn. It's William Elijah Benjamin. So he's named after W.B. Du Bois and Benjamin Elijah Mays, who, by the way, and some of your listeners who've been around here for a while will know that Benny Mays was on the board of Paine College for years before he died. And the conference room that's right behind me, the president's conference room, is named after Sadie Gray Mays, who was Dr. Mays's wife, who was from Augusta and an alumna of Paine College.
Awesome. Awesome. How all of that is connected.
Yes.
So, what was your first job in academia?
As a professor at United Theological Seminary, I ran a doctoral cohort at United Seminary, which I received my Doctor of Ministry there. And then I taught what were called the Gardner-Taylor Fellows. And Gardner-Taylor is one of the legends of Black preachers. We call him the dean of Black preachers. And our group actually got to sit at Dr. Taylor's feet while I was there. And so I was doing that while pastoring the historic Pennsylvania Avenue AME Zion Church in Baltimore, Maryland, in the great Upton neighborhood of Baltimore. Upton is probably Baltimore's Harlem, great heritage and legacy. Thurgood Marshall was born in that neighborhood, just a couple of blocks away from that church while I was teaching. And I always, as I mentioned, I wanted to be a college president, but I came in the back door. I was never a vice president. I was never a dean and never a provost. But I had an extensive leadership record. And I think that's what led Clinton College to take the risk of hiring a guy who had never been a college president before, all because I had desire. And they knew that, leadership is transferable. And I think that's why you see, especially in the corporate world, you'll see CEOs go from industry to industry because they have a set of leadership skills. And I think that's what kind of worked for me. I had to get up to speed on higher ed and all the laws and policies and protocols of higher education. But I'm a pretty quick study, and I spent long hours, and I made sure I had some good mentors. And so my 7.5 years at Clinton College, I grew into the job as the college grew along with me.
Well, thank you for that. So fast forward, it's 2025, and you are at Paine College in Augusta, Georgia. Tell me a little bit about your vision. What would you like to see happen at Paine College?
Yeah, well, what drew me to this was vision. I saw potential. I don't use the term lightly. I know we throw it around a lot, but I really do consider myself a visionary. I think vision is my superpower. You can wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I can talk about vision. It's just always been a part of me. I'm always looking at what can be. And when I looked at Paine, even from a distance, I saw what could be. And a lot of it, and an accurate definition of vision is seeing a preferable future based on reality, right? So the reality is that Paine is an amazing institution with a great legacy. When you look at the people who graduated from Paine, some that are well known and some that people don't even know about that are making a major difference in the world, people that I regard and respect, and I'm still learning all of these alums I keep coming across, but I saw enough from a distance to know that Paine was a special institution. So I'll tell you a couple of things that drew me to it had to do with what was happening at Clinton. And I think it's important for people to understand that leadership is about fit. Just because you're a good leader somewhere else, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be a good leader in another context. And so I had great success. We had great success at Clinton College. I built an amazing team, transformed the school that people had written off. Clinton had been a junior college. Most people didn't even know about the school. It had a pretty bad reputation. But again, I saw potential there, and we turned that thing around. And I'll tell you what did it. One is being able to tell the story. I think people need to hear your story. You don't need someone else to tell your story for you. And what happened to Paine has been happening to Paine is that someone else has been telling Paine's story. And we need to be able to control the narrative. Secondly, I think you need to be able to build on the central characteristics that make you who you are. What is your mission? And you have to return to that mission. We did that at Clinton, and I see it at Paine. The other thing is you have to be able to meet the market demand. We're in an era now where education is not just valuable for education's sake. People want to know that you're going to give these students a bright future by preparing them for careers. So the traditional liberal arts education that you and I know is not enough nowadays. It's
Yeah, and I hate that
yeah, yeah,
because, I was brought up like you, from the standpoint, I went to the College of William and Mary, and they saw us, we're getting the greatest liberal arts education possible because it trains you to think and communicate
yes, yes. So you need
and
both.
build the connections between things. We could connect the dots, we could synthesize information, we could analyze things. And once we saw those connections, we could develop a solution, and we could communicate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
That
So
that was the value of the liberal arts education.
that's exactly right. So how do you then translate that to a current age where technology is the order of the day? Technology is changing everything. So, a lot of institutions now are STEM focused. Everybody's moving towards STEM, which is great. But to your point, people are looking for critical thinkers, people who can analyze, people who can lead and communicate. Those are the things that especially HBCUs major in. And so taking that good liberal arts education and matching it now with the modern demand for people who can come out and lead. I think many corporations now will tell you that they've had students, for instance, that may have gotten all A's in the STEM fields, but were not critical thinkers, did not have the soft skills, right? Which is what you need, be able to communicate, interpersonal skills, emotional intelligence. Those are things that HBCUs really major in, right? So for Paine, getting back to why Paine, at Clinton, we established, I think, 3 or 4 game-changing majors. One was cybersecurity. Now, you understand why that's important in Augusta, because you've got Fort Eisenhower, and the U.S. Military Cyber Command is right here in Augusta. There's no reason why Paine shouldn't have a bustling cybersecurity program. The other thing we did at Clinton, we got a board certified nursing program. Paine, you talk about low hanging fruit. Paine sits on 15th Street in the medical district. We ought to have pre-med. We ought to have nursing. We ought to have healthcare management, all things that are very doable that we did at Clinton College. Health sciences. We established a wellness and community health institute with $1 million a year grant from the state of South Carolina, right? Those are things that could fly here in Augusta. And of course, with the masters and sports tourism, I think we ought to have a hospitality major, culinary arts, all the things around hospitality services, which is a lucrative career, by the way, and helping prepare our students and connecting ourselves with the corporations. Here's the final thing I'll say on this. Clinton is becoming what's known as a work college. There are only 10 federally designated work colleges in the United States. And a work college, it's kind of like work study. We remember work study. It's like work study on steroids. It's where students, all the students who live on campus, are required to be in a work program, which means that they start with internships on campus in the various departments of the college, where there's a supervisor / mentor that works with them. They're developing what's called a work transcript. And the next level is they're sent to internships and externships in local businesses and corporations, right? So we're now giving them a workforce before they graduate. It's incumbent upon the college to work on the soft skills and preparing, because we know we have a lot of young people who come to our colleges where the world of work is foreign to them. They've never had a job before where they had to show up on time and answer to a supervisor and carry out a project or an assignment. And a lot of these young people are set up to fail because they haven't been given the kind of preparation that you and I and others had. I've been working since I was 13 years old. So I even worked in an office as a mail clerk, which exposed me to the corporate world. I didn't even realize that as a youngster, that I'm being connected to people who are decision makers, who are connected to people who got money and power and all that. Many of our young people never have that exposure. They're never given that opportunity. A work college does that for them at a young age. And of course, as you know, we have a lot of non-traditional students now, students who are a little bit older, who realize, you know what, there's a ceiling over my head. I need to go back and get a degree. I need to get some badges and certificates and credentials if I want to have a career, if I want to advance in life. So a lot of students are coming now back to college at 28, 29, 30 years old. And, so you got to change the way you deal. It's different dealing with an 18-year-old than it is with a 30-year-old who's had a job and got 2 kids, maybe even a spouse at home. So, we've got to be able to adapt to the new reality that we're now faced with. I think Paine is uniquely suited for this next level of transformation. And I'm really excited to be at the helm.
And I am so excited as a native Augustan who grew up here during Paine's heyday. I'm so excited to hear you connect the school to Augusta's assets,
Yes, ma'am.
being cybersecurity, nursing / medical, and hospitality. Those are the things. The only other thing that it doesn't connect to is the manufacturing piece. And
Yep.
I don't necessarily think that's your area, but, as I describe Augusta's economy to people, I tell them we're about the 4M, 5M economy. We're medical, military, manufacturing, music, and the masters.
I like that. I'm going to borrow that from you.
And you can, but that's my nutshell explanation of Augusta's local economy.
Yeah.
So you're connecting to at least 3 of those M's.
Yeah.
And what you just described. So I personally, and I'm sure many of our other listeners will be extraordinarily pleased to hear that you're really trying to, again, connect the dots in a good liberal arts way.
Yes, ma'am.
To figure out how to position Paine for success.
Yeah.
You also touched upon a few things as you talked about your experience at Clinton. You talked about the ability to tell the story.
Yes.
And that had been missing. And that is a particular challenge nowadays with X and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, all these other platforms. Everybody else tries to tell a story for an organization, institution, or company. Everybody else tries to do that for them. So have you figured out how you're going to stay ahead of that curve to really get the message you want to get out regarding Paine and its future?
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, this is part of it, right? Having this conversation and having people like you who are willing to give us a platform. I've dropped some breadcrumbs already in Augusta so people can see that I'm a little savvy when it comes to marketing and communications. I've been doing my own Facebook Lives, right? Chronicling the first 100 days.
Someone, yes,
Yeah.
I did. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm doing a little bit of that. I don't want to oversaturate and become the boy who cried wolf with people like, oh, it's the same thing every day. But, from time to time, I'm coming on and chronicling my first 100 days at Paine, talking about my excitement, the challenges that I met with, the people that have become or are becoming partners, those who are already partners of Paine. I'm going to be meeting with my media and communications team to talk about how we turn this into some kind of documentary of the first 100 days that we can go back to years from now and see this is how the transformation started at Paine College. And you're exactly right. We have to use these platforms to our advantage. I'm going to be honest with you. When I was studying Paine from a distance, I went to YouTube and I looked at video. All I have to do is type in Paine College, and probably 80% of the videos were negative. They were reports about Paine is in trouble, the accreditation issue, the financial issues, the negative stuff that was out there because somebody else was telling the story. And you're going to have some, I'm sure during my tenure, I'm going to do something controversial. Something's going to happen that I don't have any control over, but it's going to be attached to Paine College. That's all a part of life, right? And someone said years ago that all publicity is good. I don't necessarily believe that, but it does get the attention. But when you can offset the negative with so many positive stories, it accrues to your benefit. And so we're trying to craft these stories now. I think there are some amazing, as I alluded to earlier, there's some amazing alumni of Paine that don't get enough attention. So I'm going to do my own tour, my listening tour with the alumni chapters across the country. To meet some of these alums and begin telling me a story. I do believe that more alums are really excited right now. I don't know what it is. I'm grateful that they think that I'm the answer right now, but it's going to take a lot. But people are excited and they want to re-engage. And so what I've got to do is prove myself worthy of their support by being transparent with them. I think that's part of the problem with Paine is that people felt like, we were secretive. And I get it. When you get in crises, people have a tendency to put their head down and be in protection and preservation mode. So you don't want people to get in your business. You don't want to air the dirty laundry. You don't want to talk, but that's the exact opposite. Anyone that knows how to do crisis management knows that, you do your internal stuff, but don't run from the media. Don't run from attention because they will create their own narrative if you don't control it. So we're going to get out there ahead of this thing and start sharing the great story. You did kind of allude earlier around vision. I shared with you a little bit of where I'm going, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to spend time with our stakeholders around crafting that vision. I think it has to be a shared vision. My job is to lead the process, but it's got to be a shared vision that everyone buys into so that by the time I stand up before you and others and say, this is the strategic vision of Paine College, that I've had the input of all of the stakeholders at every level. So people know that this isn't just McCorn's vision, this is Paine College's vision.
Exactly. And you touched on something else that I wanted to ask you about, also similar to your experience in Clinton, is the notion of the bad reputation. I came back to Augusta in 2014, and Paine was at the height of its financial crisis right around that time. And the narrative from some was, well, I'm not going to donate any money to Paine because I don't trust that it will be managed well.
Yes.
They have mismanaged the resources that they've had, so I don't see any need to give more. Are you ready to counter that one?
I
Because
am.
all these things that you've talked about
Yeah.
are splendid. I mean, it's
Yeah.
music to my ears, but I know it takes money to make it all happen. And I
That's
know
right.
fundraising is a major part of the
Oh
job of
God.
any college president.
It's my primary job. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think, to your point, you're exactly right. I have to build trust. It's really all about trust. You've already hit on it. People who would do more have to be assured that the money is going to be managed well. I can only tell you what my track record is. And I think that may be what's exciting some of the alums. At Clinton, I mean, we doubled the revenue of the college and did more with less. We built a new digital library and learning commons, the first HBCU to have a digital library and learning commons. We built an academic center for excellence, which housed a nursing simulation unit. We doubled the athletics program and became national competitors in basketball and in volleyball. I could go on, and we did that with limited resources. So we were good managers. In fact, for 3 consecutive years, Clinton College had a perfect 3.0 composite score. And people who understand auditing, understand how important that is. Your creditors and the federal government look at that number. You have to have at least a 1.5 to be considered, stable. We had a 3.0, which is perfect every year for the last 3 years. And so I've been a good manager. I put good managers around me. My CFO was outstanding. In fact, my CFO at Clinton College is now the interim president. And I hope that she gets the job permanently. She's an outstanding leader, and I saw her grow right before my eyes. And I'm very proud, being a mentor and a model for her, that she's now ready to take the helm. But she would, in terms of financial management, she didn't get that from me. She already had that skill set. She was outstanding, and I could trust her. And I think that helped other people gain trust in supporting Clinton College. That's got to happen at Paine. And as we say, in the hood, I can show you better than I can tell you. So I'm just going to have to show people that we're going to be good managers. I think some folks will give us the benefit of the doubt. I think some people will look at the track record, and as long as I'm honest and transparent with people, I've never been in the business of over promising and under delivering. I want to be honest with people, but I'm telling you, the potential I see at Paine is enormous. And we just want people to believe in Paine again. They know what Paine could do in the past. And the other thing that's beautiful about Paine is the cooperation between Blacks and whites in Augusta, right? Paine was started that way as an institution that was equally supported by the then Methodist Episcopal Church, which was white, and the CME Church, which was Black. And all these years, they have maintained their co-sponsorship of this institution and made sure that there was diverse representation on the Board of Trustees. We could do a little bit better. I think, again, during those days that you referenced, we lost the diversity that we once had on that board. And so I'm going to be vigilant about including other people on the board of Paine, a diverse group of people from several sectors of Augusta and even national. I think there's some national people that we need to bring to the table. But I think it's important for Augusta to have an institution that is multiracial.
The first thing I heard you talk about the listening tour. I heard you talk about building a collective vision for the institution. I heard you talk some about expanding some of your academic offerings. And the telling of the story. I love this documentary for the first 100 days. What are going to be your top priorities? How do you see yourself spending this first few months? And also, I want to ask, how long were you at Clinton?
7.5 years.
Okay. Which is to say, that doesn't surprise me at all, because it takes a while to do all of this.
It does.
We talked earlier about, before we got started with our recording, we talked about a mutual friend that we have who is president of the Edward Waters College in Jacksonville. And I have watched him just sort of pull all of these pieces together, but it's not something that you can do overnight.
That's right.
It takes a while to make it happen and to do it in a systematic way where people can see long-term results.
Yeah.
So knowing that this is going to be, you got to think it towards the long game. How you spending this first few months?
Yeah, great question. So I borrowed this from my pastorate days, and there was a common belief in church world that it takes 7 years to become the pastor. And maybe I could say that about Clinton. It took 7 years for me to really become the president. I think skilled leaders, the learning curve is a little shorter and it may not take as long. But Paine, as you know, has had some deep-rooted issues that's going to take a little while to work through. So I'm not in a hurry. When I was a younger leader, I was very impatient. I wanted everything done yesterday. I learned with a little wisdom, time, and experience that it does take time, and you've got to be willing to put in the work over the long haul. So to your point, there are some things that I'm jump starting to kind of create momentum for us. So I have appointed a transition team that's a cross section of the Paine family, faculty, staff, alumni, stakeholders who are part of my transition team. It's about 25 to 30 of them. We had our first meeting last week. And they've been charged to walk alongside me for the first 100 days. They've been divided into subcommittees. We started with a SWOT analysis, which was very interesting, to be honest. And I asked them, just be honest, put it all out on the table: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And what I said to them, it is our job to maximize our strengths, minimize our weaknesses, capitalize on our opportunities. And the last one was something around eliminating the threats, or maybe minimizing the threats. I forget what it was, but anyhow, dealing with those things going forward. And so every committee is taking a SWOT analysis to their separate areas that they are focused on. And so on April 11th, which will mark my 100th day at Paine College, we're going to have a press conference, and I'm going to give a report of the first 100 days. What did we learn? What do we see as opportunities before us? And how do we engender support from people? I don't know if I'll be casting a large vision for Paine College, but I'll have at least a glimpse of what I think is the direction of Paine College going forward. So I'm spending time with that team, but obviously I'm working with my cabinet. I have a cabinet meeting every Monday. So I'm on a fact-finding mission with them to get them engaged. And then the other thing that I'll say is what I'm doing right now is spending time sharing myself with the Augusta community. I want to meet people from all different walks. I'm going to meet with the Economic Development Authority. I want to meet with the Chamber of Commerce, but I also want to meet with regular citizens of Augusta. I want to hear from long-standing people in the African-American community. I want to hear from the white community that has been concerned about Paine and how they can help and support us, and everybody in between. I'll be doing that. That's going to take longer than 100 days, but I'm certainly going to be spending some of this time doing that as we begin to move forward.
So there's some big events coming up. I got an invitation in my mailbox a few days ago. Can you talk a little bit about those activities?
Well, I hope you come. We want everybody to come. But homecoming is a big deal at Paine. We're one of the few HBCUs that has a spring homecoming because we don't have a football team. So basketball is our homecoming game, but it also centers around the celebration of Founders Day, which is on February the 8th. I want to invite, maybe that's the 7th, February the 7th is Founders Day. I want to invite everybody to come to Founders Day, which is during homecoming week. I'm going to be the Founders Day speaker this year, so it may be the first time that folks will hear my voice in that kind of setting as I kind of talk about Paine and inspire us to go forward while honoring the past. And then that evening, we will have our 21st annual Presidential Scholarship Masked Ball. We raise money to support scholarships in partnership with the United Negro College Fund. And it's a great highlight. I hear it's one of the top social events in Augusta. And so we're inviting people to come and share. It'll be an opportunity for you to meet the new president and for me to meet you and to just have some fun. To celebrate the future. It's happening during Black History Month, so we'll be celebrating our heritage, but just celebrating the fact that God has given us a new beginning as an institution and as a community. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll have basketball games the next day, men and women, and all the alums are coming back. So we're just really excited. Every day we're getting more and more excited about homecoming week.
Awesome. We are about to close out this interview, but if there's anything else that you want to share with our listeners, our listeners that are here in Augusta or listeners throughout the state of Georgia and beyond, is there anything else that you want them to know about where you're headed with Paine?
Yeah, the one other thing I would say, which I neglected to say earlier, and you know this well, Paine was hit hard by Hurricane Helene. Augusta was hit hard. And our campus has suffered some damage. And it's things that you hardly prepare for. And even with insurance, it's not going to cover everything. And insurance companies move kind of slow too. So there's some immediate needs that we have. So I ask for you to go to paine.edu and click the link for hurricane support for Paine College. Every contribution helps, no matter how big or how small. It helps us to get this campus back up. And for those of you that have never seen Paine, it's a beautiful campus. There's some work to be done surrounding the campus, but it's also, as we list our opportunities, there are several properties around us that we're seeking to acquire, to repurpose, redevelop around us. We're holding off the encroachment to my friends at Augusta University. I know
Which
that
has
they're
been
trying.
which has been a concern in the community.
It
I
has
mean,
been.
for the last 10 years that I've been back, I have been hearing the fear that AU is going to take over everything because it would just be so easy to do. All they have to do is cross the street.
That's right. That's right. And it's prime real estate on the other side of 15th Street. I get it. But we're here to tell you that's not going to happen. It's better for us to be partners rather than competitors. So I've not yet met the president of Augusta University, but I hope to meet him soon to have that conversation about how we can work together. But there's a vision for Paine to expand our campus and to build for us a first-rate university on that side of 15th Street. So if you've never seen Paine College, I invite you to come. If you haven't been in a long time, come and visit and see this beautiful, serene campus that has so much potential. One of our signature buildings, is the Gilbert Lambeth Memorial Chapel. It is a beautiful chapel. It was hit by the storm. The steeple was damaged during that storm, so we've got to restore that as well as to preserve the building. You'll be hearing soon about a major campaign to restore the chapel and renovate it with new stained glass windows and new lighting in that chapel. So you'll be hearing more about that. But I just wanted your listeners to know that we do need your support immediately to help with the repairs and restoration of the facilities that were damaged during Hurricane Helene.
You so much for joining us for your first appearance, but I hope it will not be your last. We will offer you a standing invitation if there are major activities coming up and you need to come back to Local Matters. Please feel free to reach out to me and we can get your schedule.
Would love to. Thanks for the opportunity. Looking forward to working with you in Augusta.